The ACN podcast is made possible thanks to the generosity of our listeners and sponsors, including the Agile Alliance. As a nonprofit membership organization, the Agile Alliance is an excellent resource to help you along your Agile journey. To learn more about the Agile Alliance and our other sponsors, as well as how you can become a sponsor or supporter of our show, please visit acnpodcast.org for more information. And thank you for your support. Good morning and good evening, everyone. This is the Agile Coaching Network. I just finished doing a poll, sort of the there was a number of people. It's kind of amazing when we're setting up the call that we have like people that are just early. And so I just thought I'd throw together a poll real quick to let people know what people were feeling. And there's a number of people, 61% is glad it's Friday. 11% of you is just having an outstanding day, which is really cool. 25% of you going, whew, it's ACN Friday, which is always my exciting thing because this is the time that I get to go interact with the whole group and the people that we've got associated with the Agile Coaching Network. And I'll talk about the regulars in a second. But, this is, something we carve out our Fridays for because this is something we enjoy to do. And for the 3% of you that says, I guess I'm okay, hopefully by the time we get through, and I can't make any particular promises, but after we get through our hour together, hopefully that will turn to something a little bit nicer. If you're not familiar with the Agile Coaching Network, if this is the first time that you've been with us, we're a part of the Agile Alliance. The Agile Alliance is our sponsor. They've been a sponsor for the last couple of years. This is a part of the outreach of what the Agile Alliance does. The Agile Alliance is a nonprofit organization. Please do not think of them as I think I got my certification from them, because we're not that alliance. We're a different alliance. We're actually the alliance that formed up at the start of the Agile Manifesto when it was authored. As a matter of fact, in December, we're coming up on our official 20th anniversary as an incorporated nonprofit and something to celebrate. I bring them up specifically because if you look at the Agile Alliance as a nonprofit organization, it's a member-based organization. If you're not currently a member today, please give that some consideration. We are a great community, but everything that gets funded, the stuff that we do in our mission work, comes from the sponsorship of you, and the way that you can contribute to the mission that we're doing is just by simply becoming a member, and you don't have to volunteer, you don't have to do anything up and above that, but if you can't volunteer if you want to. But we strongly, we'd love to have you as a member. And we'll talk at the end of this about all of the different member events that are coming up that actually adds value to you, not just to value to the bigger community, but also ways that you can learn and explore the way it is that we are looking at Agile and Agile development. I'm joined with a great and outstanding cast of regulars that join me each month. And I cannot do this show without them, and just give them a call out. Shauna, Hendrik, Jorg, and Diana, they're all here today. They are to help us get our conversation going and sort of getting our blood boiling, or hopefully not our blood boiling, but just get our juices going with all of this so that you can step in and also participate as well. And this is somewhat of a unique call, because I know we've seen surveys that said that, let the experts talk for the entire hour. That's not this conversation. This is us getting together and talking about the issues that are top of mind to the Agile community. And it is about you participating as well. So I had a multiple set of conversations over this last month with Agile Alliance corporate members, and in particular talking to them about what's top of mind with them and what they're currently working on. And I know that we've had, in one of our recent episodes, we did talk about how people are working, and specifically in the COVID space. But that has sort of evolved into a slightly different conversation, because companies are now looking at what is the future of work within their organizations, and in particular, how does Agile fit into that? Agile, as you know, we've promoted for the first several decades a culture of co-location and a culture of getting people together, whether, at its time there was no technology like we have today. Now that we have that technology, we get together through Zoom and other types of products that bring us together more. But the future of work, in particular, from what I'm hearing from companies, is it's anything from, we've divested from corporate spaces, and we're now going to have a hybrid work environment. Very loose definition of what that means, because they're frankly still trying to figure that out. There's also a bunch of frameworks that have cropped up over the last couple of years, and I think Agile as the buzzword, and Agile as, as sometimes it's represented as different forms of what it actually is, versus it being principles and values that we practice, and those methods that come from those principles and values. There's also a set of frameworks that you could see a bunch of promotion now of, what is future of work. And, there's a bunch of different ones that are out there. There's a bunch of frameworks that are coming up, and probably sure enough, there's probably some certifications that are coming up behind that, which, just say no, because there's no reason to have to do that for this type of thing. So to kick off, the question is the future of work, is it just the rest of the world catching up to Agile values and principles? Am I being too over boasting about what Agile really is in today's work environment? Is it something beyond Agile? And specifically, I want to hear about what is your company doing in this space? And to kick us off in this conversation, Hendrik, you haven't been here for a couple of episodes. What do you have on this?
Hello, everyone. Yes, our company is, of course, also now that the COVID situation has improved. Many people have a vaccination now. Slowly, in some of the countries, at least, we are coming back to office. Or actually, the situation in our worldwide company is very diverse. So, for example, in China, we have been back in office since last year. So those are people who, when they hear hybrid work, wait a second, what does that mean? Do you mean you want to send me home? So that's there. In India, we have closed the offices still, but in most parts of the world, we have now something like we allow a 25% occupancy rate in the office space. So people, what they're doing right now is you go to an app, you say, I want to come to the office tomorrow, and then the app will tell you, is there still space to accommodate you or not? So we are definitely now in an interim period. As a company, we have decided to find out. So Ericsson is quite agile, and we just said we don't have the answer. We cannot say we will be only working from home or only in the offices. We said we need to find out. The world is a different world, and let's see. So we said we start cautiously with a hybrid setup. How much percent you work from home and how much percent you work in the office is something that's determined by your own preferences, by what your team needs, what your business needs, and what you agree with your manager. And that we said also that in average, we count on something like 50% of the time you're in the office and 50% at home. But this is just a very high level guideline we have, and we have to see how this is really working out. So that's just how much time we spend where. The next question is, what work can you do best at home, and what work can you do best when you're in the office meeting other people? And for that, we have done some investigations, and we will actually run also experiments with office space setups. So we have an experiment running in 3 of our sites globally on 3 different continents, where we actually refurbish the office space and make them more, for example, social meeting places. So less optimized for doing concentrated and focused work, and more focused on meeting people, having social interactions, having customer meetings, and so on. So that's a bit the journey we are on with finding out what might work best for our company.
Those are all really interesting things. I'm just kind of curious, when you said experimenting, does that actually come with some sort of parameters that you say that this was successful or not successful? Do you have metrics, or what's going on there?
Yeah, we definitely have surveys. So we have now we call it COVID surveys. So we are looking at how do people feel? Are they getting overstressed when working from home? And we will for sure continue these kind of surveys as we go into the hybrid world in the different stages. This is a multi-year journey as we see it. One thing, for example, we clearly see is that working from home, people are more stressed than before. This pure working from home situation is really eating on the people. And but there are so many potential causes for this, because in some countries the schools were closed, the kids were at home and so on, people were distracted, and then you have to run your job and take care of family. But we had also, for example, I myself, I have all the luxury in the world. I have a nice home. I have a separate home office room that I can spend my time in. For me, just my meeting calendar has completely exploded, because every coffee corner talk that I had in the past has now turned into a half-hour organized meeting. And just Monday, I had 14 meetings in 11 hours. And after such a day, I'm just dead. So these kind of things are not sustainable. And it's something which we are now discussing, how to achieve a good work-life balance, especially when you work from home.
Cool. Thank you for that. Shauna, how about you? What do you have on this?
Yeah, I want to lean in a little bit more to is the rest of the world kind of catching up to Agile? And I think we in the Agile community have spent a long time focusing on employee engagement and motivation, and how team, do they feel purpose on the things that they're delivering? Do they have mastery? Do they have autonomy? Similar to Dan Pink's model, I think that when we look at that, and we've been really trying to figure out, everything from how we can work better with offshore, how do we work better in a collaborative environment, if everybody's not in the office. And we've been trying to do this for a long time. I think that there's other departments that I'm seeing in the company, HR, finance, and some of the other, even IT, who primarily was in the office full time and worked together and sort of had these repeatable processes that they did over and over again. And so COVID really shook that up. And so what I found is that they were really turning to the product development organization to say, how do you do it? Can you give me some ways that we can become more collaborative? How do you run projects? And so that was really interesting to me, because very quickly I felt like product development, we adapted to tools such as Miro or Mural to be able to figure out how do we take our workshops and bring them virtual so that we can still get the same kind of outcomes that we were getting in in-person workshops. And so I feel in some ways blessed that we were able to share that with the rest of the organization, because it was really something that I sort of took for granted, that this is just the way that we work. We have retrospectives, we continuously improve, we adapt, and that wasn't necessarily the case in other parts of the organization.
That's really cool. Jorg, Barry just made a comment on the questions that says that it seems like the decision of whether or not you're in the office hybrid, management making the choice versus a team making the choice of whether or not they live within a particular model itself. What's your opinion on that? Do you think that the team should be empowered for making that decision, or is it a collective decision, or is it something that you feel that management should be making that choice?
I think management should set the right constraints that work for the entire company. So for us, very simply, we have manufacturing and our business is turning out physical products. Not everybody can do this from home. That's just not doable. So there are some limits, and the guys who are really standing in the factory and getting things out, they need technical support, and that chain always needs to be maintained. You need to do it with caution. You need to take the right decision, who feels more comfortable being available, but that already is team decision. And in that, it's a bit of negotiation between management with what matters to them and what they expect, and team dynamics and personal well-being, and how does that come together. So I've observed teams actually streaming back to the office as soon as that was possible, because they strive on being together in a room and getting that exchange and doing the bug hunting together. And they benefit from the physical presence by just detecting things and helping. Others just work differently, work very well offline. One thing we learned, if you do it mixed, do it very consciously. I think that is really important. Don't assume that mixing is something that sorts itself out. The rules might come from the team, but if they're not somehow explicit, it generates a lot of misunderstanding, envy, or things like that. So I think mixing needs conscious decision as a lot of things. So again, doing the experiments, having the retrospectives, that matters. And honestly, management doesn't have all the answers and all the experiences as well, because they never did it in another way. So they should be humble enough to listen to concerns and make decisions based on assumptions and verify those assumptions. I think it's really, really great if you have a big enough company or diverse enough company to try different things at the same time, because that is where the best creativity is. If you do it one after the other, you always bring more bias to the next experiment. So I envy Hendrik for his potential.
Cool. Thank you for that. Deanna, what do you think?
Well, my mind has been going in a different direction here.
Okay,
As
bring
it
it
often
in.
As it often does. Well, in terms of the rest of the world catching up to Agile values and principles, or to, Agile kind of thinking, all of a sudden I started thinking about, how many of us who are coaches or consultants in the Agile space go into organizations who are determined to create some kind of standardization across all their teams. And the first thing we say is, no, that is inhibiting the flexibility that your Agile teams are going to need. Let's look at what's effective, and let's create an effectiveness for each team or each bundle of teams, group of teams, but standardizing across might make it easy for you to look at metrics, but it's not going to make it easy for the teams to get products out the door, right? And so in that sense, I see in the things that Hendrik was saying and Shauna and Jörg, this need for more flexibility around what are the needs of the kind of work that these people are doing, and does that make a difference in, the nature of their remote work, their nature of their in-person work, the nature of their hybrid work? How do we, so that idea of having more flexibility, more transparency about why we're making this decision versus that decision for this or that group. And so I hope that some of that thinking is driving the experiments that people are talking about and so on. And then the other thing that popped into my mind is, in terms of the future of work, I wonder if people are thinking about the fact that in some ways the nature of some of the work is changing. Possibly not the assembly line or work that Jörg was talking about, where people are actually building products and manipulating big robotic machines. But I'm not sure about that. I don't work as much in that world anymore. I did at one time, but I don't work in that world as much anymore. But working in the world of technology and staff roles and things like that, one of the things I'm seeing in the future of work, and I've seen it already starting and have been seeing it for some time, is in the late 60s, early 70s, Peter Drucker declared that much of our work had shifted from that kind of brute force, hands on the product work, to what he called knowledge work, which is people using information and existing research and so on to inform their work, right? Taking data, turning it into information, kind of the knowledge work kind of thing. And the thing that I've been seeing in the last number of years, particularly with software teams, is a shift to not even the limitations of knowledge work, but learning work. And I've seen, since I started talking about this a number of years ago, I've seen a number of other people, Barry O'Reilly and other people, writing books about learning and the way we need to think differently about learning. And I think for software teams, much of the work is learning work. It's not manipulating existing knowledge. It's learning what new is needed. It's learning about, it's the ideas of complexity and chaos. It's probing to see what is going to emerge and how, and then getting some good ideas about how to respond to what is going to emerge and making sure we have the skills to do that and so on. And so I see a lot of conversations in the future of work about some of the things that was on that previous slide. How do we organize the work? How do we, where do we do the work? What is that? Who do we need to employ to do the work? That kind of stuff. But I don't hear as much conversation about for at least some of the work, the nature of work is changing. And we're going to need to be flexible and adaptable to the needs of that new kind of work. And I don't see as many companies having that kind of awareness. They're still wanting to use old work principles to apply to new kinds of work. And I think, and Agile has been a part of that shift, but we've still got a long way to go.
Okay, first I wanted to just applaud everyone for the diversity of thought on the subject. What do I think about the changing world and I guess the use of the future of work or other frameworks to depict the future of work? I really think that the world is pivoting because they see or adopting Agile practices and some of the principles and values that guide the mindset, because they see that the best companies, the most successful organizations, the best startups are using it, and they want to emulate that success. But unfortunately, without the mindset component, we're only teaching them a dance step. The mindset is what makes the dance step performance art. And I think that in the diagrams that you provided for the future of the workplace, the most constant element in 3 out of 4 of the visualizations displayed was artificial intelligence or automation. So I think that just the fact that we are on the cusp of seeing hundreds of thousands of jobs disappear because of, no longer needing a certain level of subject expertise, that it's important that we as Agile practitioners try to develop a diversity of skills across a number of areas of expertise so that we're cone-shaped and able to survive. So that's one of the things that I'm looking at. Another thing that I've noticed during the pandemic is that, yes, companies are being forced to revisit the way that they work. What I've found really successful is so 2 things. One thing I did, I created a maturity assessment to kind of see how teams how they feel about their performance as a team internally. So we could kind of see what things we need to pivot or change within that. And then the second thing I did was really try to reinforce the principles by using different practices to reinforce it. So to achieve a consensus, or to kind of just level set the agenda. Instead of writing an agenda, I have teams develop success criteria. So at the beginning of every meeting that is not a ceremony, because ceremonies have their own success criteria, which every team knows, right? But they come up, this meeting is a success if I accomplish the following things. And those things are named up front. And then other team members may come in and add or take away things from that list because they've either not been identified as issues or they've already been solved. And then everyone collaborates on trying to meet the success criteria within the time box. So there are little tricks like that I've adopted, showing people how to conduct focused conversations, act active listening, you know, because one of the problems identified was that people were always talking over each other in the video conferences, and that might be due to lag or whatever. So the focused conversations and active listening really prevented that or mitigated that. And after a while, most teams that adopted it didn't have that problem anymore. So those are my thoughts and insights. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you very much for all of that. Scott, how about you? What do you have?
When I look at the first question, the rest of the world catching up to Agile values and principles, since I was doing software development for about 30 years before Agile showed up, I always tell people, well, it's nice to see that the world is catching up to what Deming taught in the 1950s, finally.
Right.
And Agile may be the way that's happened. But when I look back at the things that Deming was teaching the Japanese and then what he wrote in Out of the Crisis, I always think, well, it's nice that the rest of the world's finally catching up to what he was trying to teach them 50 years ago or more.
Well, I think you bring up an interesting point, because I think that a lot of, you know, what inspired Agile and iterative development, it does come straight out of the 60s in certain cases, or fit 1950s or earlier. And it's just amazing for the rebuilding of Japan at the time. Those were vital things, vital tools that were brought in to enable that. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Sheila, how about yourself?
Actually, following up a little bit on what Scott was just saying, not going back to Deming, but what I was thinking about this was more, I agree with the Agile principles, and I think that can be a guide for some, but I feel that the big thing is leadership, right? And a lot of those principles just speak to good leadership, and good leadership understands their teams, has that trust for the teams to know what to do, kind of opens them up and empowers them. And once you do that, you know, you have the future of work. And even from a standpoint of, you know, when we're talking about the workplace, and, you know, I guess it was like 2005, I trusted my team to know what was best. And I knew that I could give them, you know, I could let them work from home one day a week. And that was all I could do based on, you know, rules from upper management. But you know, without them getting all upset over it. And, you know, we had tools that we could use in order to still collaborate. And I think it's really, like I said, I think it's leadership. And I think a lot of what's in Agile values and principles and mindset is good leadership.
Fully agree with that. I think I had one leader one time that told me, I said, what is your basic leadership principle? And they said, I treat people like adults, you know, and I understand that they're smart people, and, you know, they could do their work if you just give them the space and the room to do it. So I appreciate that. Deval, if I got your name correctly.
Yes, you got it right, Ray.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I work as an Agile coach in healthcare space in the Atlanta area, and yeah, you know, one thing when Sheila was talking about leadership, I'm impressed with how my company's actually been able to adapt with the leadership and actually collaborate hands-on more with customer. We are using tools more like Spigot to as far as being able to track and have people discuss and think through more which one is more of a better prioritization and has a business value. And it's been working out really well. Actually, customer is really seeing the longer term value before, at least some cases, right? We're still obviously very new to it and working on it effectively, but it's been working well where customer actually are also having their own discussion with, and we can see that playing it out in the tool so that we can see, okay, well, this is where maybe the future need could be, and then it helps them define the MVP stuff as far as work prioritization goes. And by the way, this is pretty cool. I don't know if any of you have used Clubhouse as a tool, and I like how the way it's being done. This is my first time attending this event, and I like how you can do the Clubhouse way where you can raise your hand, unraise your hand, and start talking and stuff like that. That's great.
There's a little bit of moderation that sits in the background with all of that. I have to say that most tools, they have their pluses and minuses. But the one thing with at least this platform is that they've been responsive, which is really good. Our other Sheila, what do you have?
The first thing I wanted to say is I think a lot of the things that we now think of as Agile methods predated the Agile Manifesto. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the things that Diana was talking about as far as creativity were happening in that time frame too. So I think a lot of it is just that people are recognizing that there was always a lot of creativity in using cutting edge solutions. And I think that that's a change. The next thing is Agile gets a bad rap for disrupting the existing product life cycle. So I think it's really interesting now that Agile, it seems to be, for a while, Agile was being seen mostly as something to be used in IT, which makes sense since the people that signed the Agile Manifesto were all IT developers. But I think now it's sort of expanding out. What I'm hearing the most about and most excited about is enterprise agility. And like yesterday, I attended something on agility within HR. That they're looking at agility for the whole enterprise, not just for IT, which for a while everybody was looking at it as just an IT thing. And I think that that's something that's needed. But when you talk about virtual work, I've had teams that were offshore and remote going back at least 20 years. Again, it's one of those things where there's just a wake-up call that, oh, it's gotten easier to do that. But it was always happening because that was just the way, if you're working with large enterprises, that's just the way things were organized. You weren't physically co-located. Even when we were in the same town, we weren't in the same buildings. So we still had some of the same challenges. They get multiplied when you have people in different continents, but it's the same principle. I think that's my piece.
Okay, no, that's all very valid, and I think what I think all the conversation has really kind of brought together is that the ideas that we're trying to bring forward in this case in order to address this is some of these are really old issues that we've been dealing with for decades, if not centuries. Alex, do you want to bring this topic to a close? Do you have final thoughts for this as we pivot?
Yes, actually, with that comment, I'm starting to bring Agile to the whole organization in Panama in Caja de Ahorro. So it's so everybody starts to talk the same language, and I think that's very interesting. That everybody can have a broad understanding of agility, as you said, of the values and the concepts.
Awesome. Well, just as a question, as you're bringing in that conversation. In that space, what are your key challenges?
How to put it, how to gamify, because the people stick to a bunch of work, the stress of the day by day. So sometimes how can you get to the whole organization and they have the time to think about it and getting into the system, into their abilities. Well, I think that's a challenge.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I think that I've seen that quite a bit as well. To pivot to the next question, how can we convince leaders to change their organizations to become agile when they believe that they're agile already? That they say that, look, we're, and I've heard this conversation all the time. Well, we're more little a agile than big A agile, and all sorts of different ways that people frame that. Deanna, do you want to take a first stab at this?
You only say that because you know what I always say.
Yeah. I know what's coming.
Yeah. I'm kind of well known for saying I'm not in the convincing business.
I know.
I think there are plenty of people out there who do have had their eyes opened, who do know that newer, more flexible ways of working, more focus on effectiveness over efficiency is going to help their organizations. So I like to go find them and not try to convince people who are busy defending their habits, not wanting to have to examine how they work. I mean, examining how you're working and learning to work in a new way is a huge challenge. And I have a lot of compassion for people who just don't have the bandwidth for that. I think that I might spend some time offering them some information if they're open to it about why I do think things are going to have to change. But the folks who don't have a growth mindset, aren't open to new learning and so on. In some ways, I think hanging on to those folks and spending time trying to convince them is just a path toward very little success. So that's my stance. And I know that's not a stance that everybody can take. I mean, people are invested in the organizations that they're in. But way back in the beginning of Agile, either Martin Fowler or Mike Beadle or somebody variously attributed a famous quote is change your organization or change your organization. And because there are plenty of places out there who really do want to get better. And spending a little more time to find those places can be very worthwhile. And so I just say, gosh, I wish you well. I hope that continuing to do things exactly as you're doing them will work out for you in the long run. If you want to have a conversation someday about how that's working for you, I'm always here to have that conversation, but I'm going to move on to where I think we can really be successful.
Awesome.
And that's just my stance.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Hendrik, what do you have on this?
Yeah, just somehow I tend to sympathize with what Diana said. Then my corporate reality looks different because I have a role to play, and my business is still convincing business. I cannot escape that easily. But on a very serious term, one problem already is when we come as coaches with the attitude that now we need to convince someone. This is often not helpful. So because sometimes we just think leaders, it's in our imagination that leaders do not, they think they do not need to change or whatever. And then we from our side start making this a fight, we versus them. We know Agile and they just need to listen to us and then the world will be fine. So we need to watch a bit out for ourselves that we don't make this a battle. What I have started to see or experiment with was this fit for purpose spectrum that I've shown on one of the Agile conferences, and that we have been also talking about here in this group already. And for me, this proves to be very valuable because I don't make it a fight. I just say, what you have done and so on brought you so far, and congratulations for that. So what you have learned is not useless, but the world requires some more things, and maybe you might want to look into other approaches than the ones that you have learned, which are usually Lean and Six Sigma kind of things. So maybe Agile, design thinking, those kind of things are more fit for purpose for some of the challenges that you have. So I make this as a suggestion, and then they can decide whether they want to go for it. But with this a bit less confrontative approach, I had much better experiences than going there and you just don't understand.
Yeah, the old classic meme of, you keep using that word and I don't think you know what it means. Shauna, what about yourself?
Yeah, what Diana said really resonated a lot, especially being empathetic to sort of looking at the systems. Companies, especially companies that are growing or scaling, are really trying to look at their organization as a whole and say, how do we continue to keep the system operating? I've never run a company in this new model that we're going to, being remote, having everybody, not here. And so I don't really trust changing the way that we're doing things, especially in this new model. I'm seeing companies grow very fast during this time. It's really interesting to see, especially within the tech space, there's kind of this surge of IPOs and companies that are really doing well. And because of that, there's an interesting dynamic that's sort of happening, which is, we need to grow and scale. We need to bring on lots and lots of people, but we want to be flexible. We want to get systems in place. We need to get operational practices, and it's a lot. It's a lot to think about. And so, I think patience, being able to show what good looks like, this is really when good leadership kind of comes into play, and say, when I say agile, this is what I mean. It's being able to reflect back. It's being able to continuously improve. It means that we, break down the work into manageable pieces that we can all consume. And I think that getting and understand, when we say big A, little a, what those values are and what we're trying to do, and bringing clarity to that is really important, because, as companies are growing and scaling, it can be scary when they're working in models that they've never worked in before.
Thank you for that. Jörg?
Yeah, agreeing to a lot of things that have been said, and maybe a bit of what I'm trying to do is to approach it from 3 ways. One is actually looking at the leaders. So who are really the leaders who have a need? Because there's never only one leader in any organization. Some of them are not even conscious that they are needing, but they maybe have a desire for something better, and then see whether that matches, as Henrik said, with the fit for purpose. Maybe even showing them that Agile isn't the way for what they're going to do there, because it's actually something else that they need. And I definitely stay away from the words. I try to really make it a benefit that we are discussing. What kind of benefit do we get if we do an experiment? And if that experiment succeeds, how could the bigger future look like? Or, you sure you want to go that way? There are a million things that can fail. So how to avoid the failure? By adding flexibility, doing something else. And then again, going to the experiments and showing by proof of really creating benefit that it works and that it gets interesting. And normally the reaction then is, isn't that called Agile or something? And how can I apply all these buzzwords to get more recognition inside or outside the company? So that is making people a bit curious, and learning what their needs are, and then trying to work out with them together what's the best first step. And then just take that first step and have a vision of the road and enjoy the journey.
Cool, thank you for that. Ian, what do you have on this?
Yes, I wanted to just applaud Diana for saying she's not in the convincing business. I literally tell stakeholders and decision makers, listen, I am not in the arm twisting business. Not only do I understand English, I speak it, no means no. And then I try to really get to, well, before I even get to that sentence, I try to get to the root cause of what the pushback is, because it could be, a number of different reasons. Sometimes I've noticed when joining Agile transformations that were already set up, my predecessor may have created or allowed certain anti-patterns to exist that weren't resolved. So the impression of the framework or methodology that may be in place to help that company achieve its goals, it's kind of undermined the stakeholder or decision makers' ability to really adopt. So that may be one of the reasons. Another, they may just think Agile is snake oil, right? So I try to get to what the root cause is, and then instead of twisting their arm or going into opening a convincing operation, I just press the greed button. So I say like, hey, I have to believe that if I were able to do X, Y, Z, and I may know what that is because I've heard it from leaders and teams, or I may just ask them to, what does success look like? If Agile is really, if teams are firing on all engines and everything is running like Pharaoh's chariot, what does it look like? And then have them explain what that looks like. It's like, look, I can give you that. And then it's name a tune. I think I could show you some movement on that within 3 to 6 iterations. Why don't you let me try it out on a small team? Why don't you let me identify an opportunity and see if I could tease some value out? And all you have to do in that instance, if a team averages, a commitment of 10 and a delivery of 7, all you have to do is get that 7 to 8 or that 7 to 9, and then be able to flip that and show them, how much productivity, how much value you've been able to enhance just by engaging with that one team. And then they become more receptive and allow you to kind of scale that out across broader teams. So this is how I've addressed this problem every time it's come up. And if they've ever given me an opportunity to run the test or experiment, I've been able to come back within 6 to 8 weeks with results that would, have them more likely to change their mind than they were before we did the experiment.
Cool. Thank you for that. Sheila M, I'm going to have to, both Sheilas have their hands up, so I'm going to have to codify it a bit here.
So I think to me, if it's a company that says they don't need to change and they're not agile, then I would be asked, well, even if it's a company where they're saying that they're agile enough and they don't really need to change, then I would be saying, great. So you're planning on obsolescence because Agile basically is change, and you're going to lose out to your competitors who are able to change to meet changing needs more quickly than you. So basically, you're planning for your whole organization to become obsolete, and that's pretty much where I would wait and see what the response is to that to see where to go from there.
That's a drop your mic moment right there. It's like you just walk away. Boom.
But it's the truth.
Yeah. No, no doubt. Sometimes those wake up calls are what some leaders need. I remember it wasn't me, but there was one leader that I one time, he was asking why everyone else wasn't being agile, and the agile coach that was doing the enterprise adoption stood up and says, the only one who's not being agile is you. And it's like, oh, that's bold. I think they chalked it up to the last time that I almost got fired. But cool. I thank you for your perspective on that. The other Sheila.
Hey there. So I feel like Ian stole a lot of my thunder there and said a lot of things that I was going to say, but I just wanted to chime in that I think from a perspective that I've had to do this multiple times, it depends, and you have to understand who you're talking to. And I agree with Diana in the sense that as when I was a consultant, if somebody, if I said to somebody, what they were doing in this space and they're like, oh, well, we're already agile, and I knew that they weren't, I'm like, I may have a conversation and hope to, get to that, oh yeah, you're right, we're not. I wouldn't tell them they're not, I would just have that conversation to hopefully lead them there, not really convince them. And when you're in the organization, yeah, I agree with everything Ian said when, that you have to kind of almost negotiate, but negotiate in a way that they feel they're getting benefit and that you're not pushing something on them.
I appreciate that. Augusto?
I see this question like a two-part question, and let me elaborate about that. I think that all the companies currently, or the organizations, know that they need to change. Okay, something that quarantine has been teaching us is that change happens whether you like it or not. So as a company, you need to change. Now, the challenge I faced, and I want to share with you my experience, is when an organization says, "Oh, we are already agile. We are agile already, so there is not much to do in here." And I think the right way to approach to that kind of situation is to leverage on if you are agile, well, you know that we need to start, improving the everything. Okay, we need to start improving ourselves. So let's start with that. Okay, if you already have, these agile teams that don't do agile, but they think they do. Okay, let's start working with those. Let's start, separating some teams and start working properly with them, and start showing the results of that little change, that little improvement, and start growing from there. Okay, because at the end, companies already know they need to change, but the way they are changing is, in previous years they were asking for, the agile pill just for IT directions, and now they are asking for the agile pill for all the directions. Okay, so my way to approach in that kind of situation was that, okay, you're already agile, let's go through it, okay, and let me improve everything. Let's start improving, because agile is about continuous improvement. Okay, so in that case, okay, I got a success, entrance with this particular organization. We are still in the same page. We are moving the wheels step by step. It takes a lot of patience, as you mentioned it, but just wanted to share my experience.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Heba.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you, everyone. I really enjoyed listening to all your notes. And I just like to add that I would look at this as an opportunity from different angles. Sometime I might dare or challenge the leadership to just try an assessment, an agile assessment. And not like getting an agile company and do the meetings and discussions with everyone and interviews and such. No, just a tool. Just try it. A second thing is to allow me or any agile coach to be an observant. You have an observer seat on any of the agile teams, and just show the other side of how to do things in agile. And the third one is just to speak up and get everyone aligned, like lunch and learns, lightning talks, anything that comes from the people themselves in the company. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. I love the lightning talks idea and actually people sharing their experience out. I think that's really cool. We are at the top of the hour, another great conversation. We've got a couple more episodes that we're going to be recording over the next couple of months. I know that kind of seems weird that we're actually approaching the end of the year. One of the things that people have been asking about, I see this on the survey forms all the time. Hey, can we do more lean coffee or do other types of formats other than what we do here at the Agile Coaching Network? And to respond to that, we have a whole bunch of new member events at the Agile Alliance that you should take advantage of. If you're currently a member or if you're going to become a member, it's only like $49 to be a member, but you get a whole bunch of value, either helping to support the mission of the organization, or we've got a whole bunch of member events that you can join. And some of the things that had kicked off this last month, the Deliver Agile got turned into the Agile Tech Talks. If you missed any of those episodes on that, they're doing really some great things talking about the technical practices space. We're going to have a lean coffee session September 29th, the bring your own coffee. And this is going to be the first online lean coffee that we're going to be doing together. And then Save Our Shipment is going to be talking a little bit more in depth on the products and other things that we're going to be, the challenges of product delivery and other things. And they're going to be using a whole bunch of different facilitation tools in order to, break into groups and to go work on some things that are impacting current today's business. We've also been running the meet and greet. The meet and greet will be changing slightly, meaning that we still will be doing it in the Topia space, but we're also going to be looking at how can we integrate in like job fairs, because I know that a number of people come in for those networking sessions. They're looking for employment, and what can we do to go bring people into that? Lastly, the next live event for us is Friday, October 29th. I hope that you guys all be there. If you're not able to, then of course, just any of your podcast services, you can go up and you can even ask your connected device to play the Agile Coaching Network, which is really cool. Thank you all, and I hope you all have a tremendous month. This podcast is provided by Agile Alliance for educational and informative purposes only. To find out more information about the member-supported Agile Alliance, please go to agilealliance.org to find out about more upcoming events, as well as different programs that are available to help you with your Agile journey.